Here we are, bringing you a special Juggalos only after school special truth about COVID and other fucking shit about COVID. What's up, Juggalo Nation? Juggalo Professor, nobody important, coming here live, recorded before a non-studio audience with my special, super sexy bitch. Oh, he got a mouthful of Pop-Tart. He's got a mouthful of Pop-Tart. Anyway, we all know Nasty Green Ninja Star. There's right there. And right behind Nasty Green Ninja Star, can you sit up here in front of the camera just for a second? That's my cousin, Ember, with the green hair. And we're bringing this super special after school special. We're bringing it to you from the nation of the Colville Confederated Tribes here in Washington State in the good old fucked up United States of America. Now, a lot of you lows and lets are out there hearing all this bullshit about the vaccine. Bullshit on both sides. You know, the people that are like the pro-vaxxers going, anti-vaxxers are fucking stupid idiots. And then the anti-vaxxers that are like, if you get the vaccine, you know, Bill Gates is going to do mind control. You know, and both sides need to have their fucking heads slammed together until their fucking brains can amalgamate into one gelatinous mass that we could fry up and eat. What the truth is about the COVID thing and the vaccines, which I'll talk about a little bit later after the COVID thing, is it's kind of pretty heavy. Now, where the Juggalo Professor is getting all of his brainiac, super smart, fucked up information, it's from the British Medical Journal, COVID Known Unknowns. You can hashtag it, COVID Known Unknowns, BMJ. It's a YouTube lecture series that you can follow on YouTube. So if, like, you can actually pay attention, because that's all you need to do to learn. Otherwise, you pay a lot of money and you don't learn. So I'd rather pay attention. So anyway, the point is, the BMJ did this really great lecture series, hashtag COVID Known Unknowns. And while following that really great lecture series, I learned how COVID attacks the cell. And dudes, it is wicked scary how this fucking shit gets. It fucks you up bad. And in the means of the way it attacking the cell, it caused a certain body of intellectuals, most of whom are not corporate affiliated or corporate sponsored school affiliated or religious sponsored school affiliated. Most of them are independent scientists. Now, the problem with the independent scientist situation is only 30% of the world's scientists are independent. The other 70% have got their asses locked up in some corporate, military, industrial, or government contract. So they got their fucking stick stuck up their ass. Anyway, the liberal independent scientists started raising some serious questions after learning about how COVID enters into the cell in relation to the vaccines. So, first, start off with, how does COVID enter in the fucking cell? Now, for this part, we're going to bounce to a whiteboard, and I'm going to show you some whiteboard animation. So it goes down like this. The COVID virus, well, back it up. Most of you fucking lows and lets probably don't even know how the fucking virus actually gets into the body in the first place. So it goes like this. A typical virus comes in the body, yo, what's up? And it finds a cell, and it like finds an opening in the cell, like a window, and it fucking smashes that shit in and jumps in the cell, and then starts replicating itself. It like, you know, making more and more of itself, right? Until that cell itself physically starts getting swollen and swollen, and it gets bigger and bigger. Now, when it starts doing, when the cell starts doing this, right, it starts going bigger and bigger, right, starts doing that, that lets the body know that there's something wrong, and an immune system response happens. Before the cell goes, pow, releasing all the virus into the body to go infect new cells. Now, that's the typical way that it works. COVID's a little different. We'll talk about whether it's man-made or not after we talk about the vaccine thing, and you'll understand that COVID's not really man-made. It's a natural virus that's radically adapting to all the shit we're giving it. It goes a little like this. COVID, like the other viruses, comes in, yo, what's up? But instead of looking for an opening, like a window they can smash in and go in that way, it's a little bit more trick. It's a little bit more slick. It's a little bit more smooth in its action. Comes in and meets up with the cell, binds with the cell nodule at this joining point, and instead of busting into the cell like other viruses, it shoots in this, well, let's just call it a hypodermic needle. It's really a protein chain tube that's really small that allows single strands of RNA structure to pass through it. But basically, it's a hypodermic needle. It injects the shit right into the cell, like real thin, like the cell doesn't have any defense against it. Any opening, the smallest opening, the biggest opening, it doesn't matter. As soon as it binds to the cell, finds this opening, bam, hypodermic needle time, it goes right in. After the needle injects into the cell, it starts squirting in its RNA, which causes the COVID virus cell to collapse and get smaller, like a balloon deflating as it's ejecting all the stuff in. Once it gets to a certain level of collapse, that hypodermic needle then works as like a forceps thing, pushing open that opening of the cell that it injected itself into. And this, of course, causes a little stress on the cell, causes a little bit of rupture of the cell lining and cell walls, which causes the cell to start doing its self-repair thing. But at the same time, the COVID cell is also doing its self-repair thing and actually binds its cell wall to the cell wall that it's infecting, thus eliminating the aforementioned swelling of the cell triggering an immune response. Totally bypasses that. So there is no swelling of the cell triggering the immune response until ready, the cell actually bursts. And the way that the cell actually bursts is the cell is infected with the COVID virus. It's replicating the COVID virus, but a part of it, like a cap, is actually the COVID virus cell wall, and it pops off first. So the cell itself doesn't even have to get to a critical mass of disrupting the cell wall. It just gets to a level to pop off the coronavirus cap, thus releasing the coronavirus in, not triggering an immune response into the body. What triggers the immune response is usually the die-off and other factors, such as, well, you know, the macrophage picking up pieces of broken COVID and things like that. The problem here with the COVID is it's any cell. Any cell. Any cell of the body. Brain cells, skin cells, hair cells, blood tissue cells, your lungs, your guts. You know, when it first came out, they were saying that it was a respiratory infection. It was a SARS. And then later on, it was a gut infection. Then later on, it was a brain infection. And the reality is it's what's known as a systemic infection. Systemic infection. It affects every organ of the body. Every single one. Kidneys, liver, spleen, you name the organ, the COVID virus is going to infect it. When it infects the cells, it destroys the cells. So you're like being killed at a cellular level with the COVID virus. When the cells die, they create toxins in their decomposition process that's what's known as the toxic die-off. When the COVID virus dies, it also does a toxic die-off. So it overwhelms the body with toxins and destroys the mechanisms of the body to remove the toxins. These are some pretty serious things. Backing up, injects the hypodermic needle into the cell, starts binding with the cell wall. But there's a period of time when the COVID cell wall hasn't fully bound with the cell wall that it's infecting and tearing open and looking to bind to. There's a gap, this window of opportunity for the macrophages of the immune system to come in and pick up antigens of the COVID and then take them back and try to create antibodies. But the problem is COVID has its anti-antigen thing, and as the macrophage comes in to take the antigens out, the COVID takes the macrophage and starts replicating, resistance to it. Once the COVID is able to adopt a macrophage, develop resistance to it, it's then able to develop resistance in that particular cell and from that cell burst to the host. This happens with all the COVID cells. At the point of interface between the cells binding together to create a cell, there's a period of where the space is open, and in that interface of open space, there's a solution in the COVID that allows it to adapt to your immune system. That's an important point. Now, this was discovered by Ravindra Gupta. Thank you. Ravindra Gupta, and here's the link to the BMJ lecture, and I'll put in the description below the the timestamp of his particular 12-minute piece of where he talks about this, how the COVID infects the cell, and they learned it through the convalescent plasma studies that they were doing last year. And they thought convalescent plasma was going to be the game changer, it was going to save people, it was going to make all the difference in the world, and it wound up killing 100 people? It wound up killing a lot of people out of the test pool, and it didn't work. The good thing that they got out of it was they learned the mechanism by which COVID enters into the cell. After learning the mechanism by which COVID enters into the cell, a group of scientists from the 30% group started raising some serious red flags regarding mRNA vaccines, because there is a very, very serious issue with an mRNA vaccine and the way COVID chooses to attack and infect the body. mRNA vaccines are exactly what the title says. It is a bit of RNA, which is genetic coding, which is most of what viruses are, is a bit of RNA. Okay? Most all viruses are just a tiny bit of RNA. When these scientists realized that COVID was adapting to immune responses by this anti-antigen interface as it was merging with the cell wall, they realized that mRNA vaccines introduced into an asymptomatic host would be seriously detrimental. Because, well, let's just put it this way. It's like launching a rocket at your enemy, and then right after the moment you launch it, you give the enemy not only the auto-destruct codes for said rocket, but the blueprints of how to build said rocket to shoot back at you. Breaks down a little bit like this. Somebody who's asymptomatic, which means they're infected with COVID, they have COVID, they're shedding COVID, they're infecting other people with COVID, but they don't feel like they're sick. They don't feel like they have COVID. In fact, they feel fucking fine. They feel great. They feel like gravy. That individual decides, hey, I'm going to be safe and go get vaccinated. They get vaccinated with an mRNA vaccine, which goes into a COVID-infected body, and little tiny bits of mRNA are floating around. Some of them meet up with the cell interface of the COVID taking over a cell. Being RNA gene strains that are friendly to said COVID virus, the COVID virus absorbs them, incorporates them, and starts to replicate the chain. That's how the shit works. Boo! So, these scientists started raising some concerns and red flags this time last year about said vaccines, saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to slow down and really look at how these things work and study how their mechanisms work with our knowledge of how COVID enters the cell. Corporate scientists, they're the majority, 70% of them said, you guys are fucking idiots, and sidelined them. Started doing all their own reports and our own research, which has turned out to be proven to be really fucking skewed datum. Oh, wait, that's plural, data. Vaccine manufacturers are saying, no, the vaccines are safe and effective. A small body of independent scientists are saying, wait a minute, this is brand new technology with a brand new virus. We need to slow down and think about what the fuck it is we're doing. Nobody wanted to. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Vaccinate, vaccinate.
Cha-ching.
Cha-ching. In the vaccination process and the vaccination rollout, here's some interesting truths. Exactly 5-ish weeks, I'll say 4 to 6 weeks, after they started the clinical trials of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in Oxford, England, there was the emergence of the Kent variant. Same amount of time that they started introducing the clinical trials in South Africa for the pharmaceutical manufacturer down there, there was the South African variant, which was leading some support to the theory that was being proposed by the independent scientists earlier, that we need to slow down and, think about how this is going to work. In this understanding of COVID attacks the body in this way, has this particular special defense mechanism that allows it to adapt and absorb RNA strands of its host to make itself stronger to that host's immune system. And then, we're going to give it RNA strands that we lab manufacture. That's the man-made part. The truth about the COVID virus, the serious, crazy, wild, fucked up truth, is it's a naturally occurring virus. Mother Nature and climate shift have changed to the point that it allowed it to spread because it was favorable. Man, in trying to come up with brilliant, ingenious ways of defeating the COVID virus, have empowered it, have made it stronger and more resistant. Not on purpose, with some clandestine intent, but on purpose, accidentally, for the purpose of bottom line profits for the corporate industries that are making bank. Bank. There you go. Juggalo professor, wicked clown, blow your dome, science show, after school, special truth about COVID-19 and how it fucks you the fuck up, and why vaccines are proving to be more and more ineffective. The more mRNA vaccines that you introduce into the populace, the more variants of COVID you're going to have. Need to find a different approach. Now, the approaches that have proven to be working, for all of you lows and lets that want to know how to stay safe from COVID, for all you lows and lets that want to know how to protect yourselves, wear a mask, socially distance, don't gather in large groups. Kind of like the shit we were doing this time last year that worked?
I have a question.
Huh.
I thought there was an issue about the anti-antigen interface. When you have the vaccine produce a bunch of antibodies, you exhaust the immune system.
Oh yeah.
And the antibodies get absorbed also by the anti-antigen.
Gotta love this woman. Gotta love this fucking woman. Half my brain.
So that also makes it evolve a little bit faster. And then exhausting the immune system just... That's a common problem with vaccine experiments, is you exhaust the immune system. This cat climbing up the...
And for those of you that are hearing some weird ass sound in the background, that is a res cat climbing a light or climbing the telephone pole to get a moth at the light at the top.
He literally just climbed 30 feet.
That's a res cat.
That's amazing.
What Nasty Green Ninja Star touched on was a very important point. You can actually cause permanent immune system damage by introducing too powerful of a fucking vaccine, motherfucker. Can't be too strong or you're gonna like break the body. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you got a 1979 Pinto. Do you really want to hook up a NOS and think that you're not gonna blow up the engine? Anyway.
And the long COVID issue, kind of like convalescent plasma. They introduced antibodies from somebody else, and it absorbed it and evolved and ended up killing the person.
So there you go, folks. Lows and Let's stay safe, stay healthy, wear a mask, socially distance, stay the fuck away from strangers, and cook your own food. Don't eat out. Make your own fucking food and shit for a while. Learn it. Woo! If you don't know how to cook, fucking learn how to cook. Anyway, so I think we covered all the talking points. Let's see. How does COVID enter the body? Injects a needle, blah, blah, blah. Opens the cell up, merges with the cell, makes a cap, causes itself to, you know, replicate in the cell, pops the cap off so it like doesn't explode the cell in a dramatic fashion. I mean, it's kind of like freaking War of the Worlds type shit, you know, inside your body. You know, COVID comes in, it's like the aliens, you know, but in this story, the humans don't win. It's like the bacteria wins, you know, it's like, kills you. I just came here to tell you about how COVID enters the body, what the fucking problem with the vaccines is, and don't get vaccinated. Just don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth chancing it because the shit don't work.
And it's making somebody else a bunch of money.
Making some pasty, crusty white person in Europe or some...
Can't get sued. No lawsuits allowed.
What?
Sovereign immunity.
That's right. That's right. Lows and Let's. Don't get vaccinated because the vaccine companies. Lows and Let's. Don't get vaccinated because the vaccine companies have motherfucking sovereign immunity from lawsuit if they fucking hurt you or kill you.
They will not compensate you.
You won't get anything. You won't get shit. You won't even get a kiss. You'll get a boot in the ass and say, get the fuck out the door, bitch. Yeah, well, we're not going into conspiracy theories. Not going off the rails on my own bullshit tangent.
Can't sue the politicians either.
Can't sue the politicians. Can't sue the governments. Can't sue the corporations.
They told you it's safe and effective. You can take your mask
Even
off.
though they're forcing you to take it, you can't sue them. So don't take it. Don't take it.
Yeah, they say there's one way to get compensated, but you really have to prove yourself.
Anybody that's dealt with an insurance company knows you ain't gonna get shit. With that, Lowe's, Let's, Juggalo family, and the Juggalo Nation, stay safe, educate yourself, get high, get laid. Whoop whoop!